So, liebe Teilnehmer, willkommen zum Finale. Wir sind sehr, sehr stolz, eine ganz besondere Koryphäe mit dabei zu haben, nämlich unseren Tudor Damian. Hi Tudor, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Excellent. Er war auch Sprecher unserer MCTTP-Konferenz jetzt im September, hat richtig tolle Punkte mitgebracht und ich darf ihn auch kurz vorstellen, solange er seinen Screen shared. Er ist Certified Ethical Hacker, Head of Managed Services bei der D3 Cyber und sein Thema ist Crafting Your Cybersecurity Strategy, Tips, Tricks and Tales from the Trenches. Wie ihr hört, der Vortrag ist in Englisch. I'm passing over the mic to you. Looking forward to this, Tudor, and let's see what you've got.
All right. So, hi, everyone. Hope you've had a good event so far. I've checked some of the sessions. Some of them were indeed in German, so I only got a part of that. But they did sound like really good topics. So, without further ado, the topic for my talk today has everything to do with how to build your cybersecurity strategy and how to look at some of the nitty-gritty details and the little things that some people, some companies might sometimes overlook. So a little bit about me. I've been doing IT, cybersecurity, networking, and stuff for a little over 20 years now. Nowadays, I mostly deal with cloud strategy, cloud governance, and IT risk management. You can find all my contact details on 2d.ro, which is my personal website. So going to the agenda for today, we're going to first start and look at the state of cybersecurity today and how that's affecting the industry as a whole and essentially anyone who uses IT in any way, shape, or form. Then we'll take a look at the reasons as to why we even need a security strategy, and then go a bit in more detail into the components of what a strategy would entail, some examples, technical and organizational measures that one can implement, and a little bit of a crash course on what virtual CISO services are and how when you don't have and you might not have that competency inside your company, looking at something like vCISO could help. And I'll also give you some real world examples, some of our customers and the situations and the issues that we've helped them with. We'll have, I think, 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. So let's go through that. IT has always been a very dynamic world, and recent years have not been an exception. So we're looking at some of the major changes in recent years. The pandemic has brought along hybrid work. Cloud computing has been on the rise for a number of years. Shadow IT is becoming more and more of a problem, with people using different solutions and platforms out there without the knowledge of the internal IT team or department. So you might be looking at potential data leaks and ways in which your data is being handled, your company's data is being handled, and you are not even aware of it. Connected devices, everyone wants to use their own device if possible, and they want to be able to do it from wherever. So they want to use their personal phone to check company email in a hotel somewhere, and you have to be able to enable that. There's a lot of expectations even when it comes to application development and the way things should be done there. A lot of nation-state actors have been active in recent years on the cybersecurity map at large, and there's a lot of new attacks on the rise. And I've listed some of them there: things like business email compromise, cyber extortion, credential stuffing, password spraying, and things of that nature. There's a lot of that going on, and knowing how to deal with those types of attacks is part of building a healthy cybersecurity strategy. Now, when it comes to the current landscape, last year, cyber threat detections reached an all-time high. and it's a thing that just keeps growing. The initial footprint of most attacks were gained through remote devices, so that phone or that laptop that's allowed to connect from wherever, if that ever gets compromised, that grants access to the attackers to anything else, like the data inside your company, in a way more convenient fashion, if you will. There's been a huge increase in backdoor malware detection, so most attacks
Okay, Tudor, we cannot hear you anymore. Ist der nur bei mir eingefroren oder habt ihr sonst noch Probleme? Gerne hier kurz in den Chat, ansonsten Freeze, genau. Ja. Okay, wir rufen ihn gleich nochmal an und dann geht es gleich weiter. Also stay tuned, verlasst uns nicht. Freeze, okay, alles klar, kalt heute, passend zum Wetter. Wir melden uns gleich, bleibt einfach kurz im Raum und wir rufen ihn kurz an und dann kriegen wir das alles hin.
So I'm assuming I lost you a little bit there.
I lost you, Tudor. So maybe you can share without your camera on. Maybe that's something.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll try that then.
And you're back.
So let's try this again. I'm thinking this is where the content cut, right? Is this
that's
right? All right, so we're looking at some trends in the industry that have been happening as of late. The way devices have been used.
The other, you're not showing the presentation view. You're just showing the other view. So maybe you can just change that for a quick one.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Let's see. Let's go with this. This should be the other view.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So there's a record number of, like I mentioned, zero-day initiatives, increased malware detections. Ransomware groups have rebranded and diversified. Cybercrime has been on the rise now for what amounts to $8 trillion in 2023, and it's estimated to reach 10.5 trillion by 2025. But the main thing here that's something that I think you should remember is the number of people employed in cybersecurity jobs right now only covers 50% of the total need out there. So a lot of companies are looking for people and they just can't find them because there's just not enough people working in cybersecurity compared to the amount of people that would be needed here. And also AI, machine learning have been on the rise, and from the perspective of cybersecurity, they are a double-edged sword. So they can be used for both protection and attacks, and knowing how to do that will keep you a little bit ahead of the curve. Nowadays, if you look at 0 days, it takes from the moment a patch is released, usually within 2 weeks, you've got some exploit in the wild. Within 2 months, some proof of concept code is already released on GitHub. And within 4 months only, do you have available scanning in the tools that you might use to detect, like intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, anti-malware, the stuff that's meant to detect these kinds of attacks. So it's just a huge window and a huge gap that allows attackers to gain access, to gain a foothold, to launch their attacks before they're even detected by existing tools. So why would you need a cybersecurity strategy? Well, given all the trends that I've mentioned, obviously there's a whole number of questions that you should be asking yourself. Like, do you have real-time insight into your data security? Do you continuously monitor your security posture? Do you regularly review and update your security policies or identify and mitigate any risks within your network, within your infrastructure? Have you put together an incident response policy and disaster recovery? And if the answer answer is yes, then that means you've already got some form of strategy or cybersecurity maturity at a higher level. The idea here is if the answer to these kinds of questions is no or I don't know, this is potentially why you would need a cybersecurity strategy. Another important point here, though, if you are trying to build a strategy, make sure that it aligns with your business objectives. This is really important. It's just don't go for just let's look at whatever has been done, whatever others are doing, and just copy that, because that might not apply to your business needs and to your business requirements. And it might just be something that ends up costing you a lot and not helping you in the same amount. Now, when it comes to a cybersecurity strategy, the core components revolve around governance, risk management, compliance, security policy, security procedures, attack surface management, vulnerability management, training, and awareness. So there's a lot of things that fall under the whole cybersecurity strategy umbrella. And some of them might be more important for you, some of them might not. It's up to you to figure out what's relevant for you to start implementing first. As long as you briefly touch on all of the points that I've listed here, you should be okay. The idea is you don't have to do everything at 100% from the very beginning. Just start with the low-hanging fruits. Just start with whatever makes sense for you as an organization, whatever helps you the most, and just go through all the others in time. Because a lot of these things will fall under the law of diminishing returns. The more you invest up until the point where it's actually worth it, if you continue investing, it'll just bring less and less actual impact into your organization, and it'll just end up costing you a lot more. So finding that balance is where you should be heading. Some of the caveats and some of the things that we've seen, me and my team have seen over the years, and I feel like these are often overlooked. One is the role of leadership in cybersecurity. If the company management, and I'm speaking about the board, C-level execs, and so on, if they don't understand the need and the reason as to why a cybersecurity strategy is needed, is required, then it's going to be very, very hard to implement any strategy whatsoever. Looking at security assessments and pen testing and doing those regularly is also something that a lot of companies fail at, or they just start doing it after they've gone through a data breach. Looking at potentially addressing this via outside help, if they don't find or they're unable to find internal resources and people with the required knowledge to help them with this. And like I mentioned, it's only 50% of the market that's covered right now with the current skill set available out there. There's a lot more open positions than there are people who are able to fill those positions. So you are bound to maybe find yourself in one of these situations where you literally can't find the people that you might need because they're just not there. So figuring out ways around that, especially if your main activity is not cybersecurity and you're doing something else, it's important to figure out a way to handle this. Also, going back a little bit to the role of leadership, there's also a requirement for this mind shift from looking at IT as a cost center and seeing it as something that provides value. And you can do that through a risk management based approach where you look at the risks that you're potentially helping mitigate. Implementing zero trust and incident response is also something that a lot of companies fail to look at. Zero trust has been around for a while as an approach, and it's it's very useful if you start looking at things from a zero trust perspective. Incident response, preparing for when you get hacked, because usually it's not a matter of if you get hacked, it's rather when you get hacked, and being ready for that is really important. The way you do cloud governance, the way you protect your data is also heavily reliant on a good cybersecurity strategy. The human element is something that you must never take out, and making sure that the people inside your company are educated and aware of the risks that they expose the company and the data to. And keeping up to date with emerging technologies and future trends is also something that's important. I do have a recommendation here with some very specific, concrete questions that you can ask yourself. You can take a look at the book on the slide. It's called The 5 Pillars of Cybersecurity Framework, the cyber elephant in the boardroom. It's designed around that framework, and the framework provides a list of questions for your board and C-level management in trying to assess where you are right now from a cybersecurity standpoint. And the 5 pillars are the ones listed on the slide: IT governance, data classification management, physical security, data privacy and compliance, and incident response and business continuity. So you've got a handful of questions that will give you a really good idea of where you are right now within those 5 pillars. Some other examples, I'm sure you've heard of all of these things. They're just listed in a convenient way. So trying to protect your assets, looking at data, application, endpoint, network protection, perimeter protection. There's a lot of tools and solutions out there that you can look at implementing. There's policies that you can look at implementing. There's governance and compliance and standards out there that you can look at and abide to. So there's a lot of things that you can start off with. When it comes to, like I mentioned, looking at the virtual CISO versus a traditional CISO, traditionally in-house, you might be looking at higher cost due to a full-time salary, but yes, you do have someone for full-time. Expertise may be more specific to the industry of the organization. So if you're looking for external expertise, you might not be able to get it from an internal team. This goes through a full HR cycle, including hiring, onboarding, benefits, and it may be more ingrained in company culture and politics. Scaling up or down also may be more challenging. It's very different from looking at somebody who's external to the company, where you just pay for what you need, you contact them as needed, and you find some flexibility there. You might be looking at a broader expertise because they're usually somebody who have access to a lot of other industries, a lot of other clients and whatnot, bringing a fresh, unbiased external perspective. And while they might come with higher costs, it's also something that you might find yourself doing if you can find the internal resources. Some of the roles that a virtual CISO could cover, and they just align with the roles that a CISO would cover internally as well, and you can get a glance of them here. Also, just looking at the reasons as to why hire a VC. So the the benefit analysis just looks at the ROI, looking at the average cost of a data breach versus actually having someone, even if it's external, if you don't have an internal team to handle that, it might be still better in the long run. You could have an internal team and they just need someone to validate, to bounce ideas with, to look at finding the skilled professionals, like I mentioned, could be a challenge. And make sure that you look at their skills, their qualifications, their technical expertise, and so on. So just 2 minutes to go through a few examples out of our many customers that we've worked with over years. One of them, they're a big data provider in the US, so we've worked with them for almost 15 years now. Their internal skill set obviously revolves around collecting, processing, and monetizing large amounts of customer data. which is a bit scary, to be honest, knowing what they do and how they do it. But they always had very little in-house security and very little infrastructure management expertise. So their requirement shifted over the years. They moved from on-prem to the cloud, and the way they handled data and collected data has changed. But the key points that we were able to help them over the years were around infrastructure management, data breach incident prevention, security posture assessment, and regular pen tests and whatnot, compliance, building policies for them, building procedures for them, because their main focus was always meant to be around the big data side and never around cybersecurity per se with their internal skill set. Another example, this is a single source supplier for pipeline construction and sewer rehabilitation. They're present and active in 4 countries around Europe, and they underwent a data breach, which led to significant financial losses, which is when they contacted us. They wanted a one-off assessment and advisory on the data breach they went through. So we looked at what happened. We came back with a list of recommendations pertaining to the potential improvements that could have prevented the data breach. It was very hard because they came to us a bit late in the timeline. So it was harder to prevent or even respond to the data breach. They tried to do that with their internal team and were not really successful at that. But we did help advise on the implementation of the measures that they could put in place. And they were kind of hoping that their internal IT security team could have handled the incident, and they realized that they couldn't. Most of the measures, though, that they ended up implementing were already available to them. That means they were already paying for that stuff, but they weren't using it. Think of stuff around Microsoft 365 and Azure and a lot of the features that you pay for but never bother to configure because you think the default settings are secure enough. So they already had a lot of these things like insider risk management, mailbox archiving, DLP, privileged access management, anti-phishing policies, and things of that nature that could have just prevented this attack from the get-go. And they already had that, and they were already paying for that, but they weren't using it, which just goes to show that even though they had an internal team to handle security, they were too deep in the day-to-day running of the business that they failed to see the big picture. Another example, a global research institute this time. They're based in the United Arab Emirates. They specialize in business performance, and they also went through a security incident. This was a business email compromise with 6-figure losses. We helped them with the initial incident investigations. We helped onboard a clearer process on how to prevent that in the future. We clarified and documented the cyber kill chain that led to the breach. We provided a findings report, recommendations, assistance, and then advisory in the implementation of the recommendations. And we did some cybersecurity awareness training for key personnel in upper and middle management throughout the company to prevent some of these types of attacks. This was actually late last year and earlier this year. Another example, this is a way more recent one, so the past 2 months or so, a UK-based company, they help local authorities deal with cash management. They proactively contacted us for our vCISO services, and we ended up helping them with an initial policy review. They were already ISO 27001 compliant, but they wanted to see whether the stuff that's written in the policies is actually what's happening in reality and is actually implemented in their day-to-day stuff. So we went through an initial M365 security and compliance assessment. We looked at stuff like authentication methods, conditional access, Intune, Entra, data security, and whatnot. And also looked, of course, at the policies themselves and figured out the discrepancies and told them, like, you're saying you're doing this, but you aren't actually doing this. Let's start working on that. There's also an upcoming pen test on their Azure infrastructure where their proprietary solution is hosted. But what I loved about this customer was, I think, one of the things that they said in our first or second meeting when we asked them, so why do you think you need us for? And the answer was, we need you to help us save us from ourselves, because we don't know what we don't know, and we're not aware of what we should do or what we should be doing better. And we feel like we need some external help with this. And that's kind of the ideal customer, if you will. So with that, I think this is a wrap. Just to go through a summary of the points that I've touched. Cybersecurity itself is a continuous process, so having a strategy to cover that is essential. But make sure you ensure the alignment with the business objectives. You apply a risk-based approach, so you look at what could happen if. So just ask yourself, what would happen if my email stops working for a week? How does that affect my business, and how can I help prevent that, for instance? Perform regular security assessments of all kinds, like procedures, processes, infrastructure, technology, architecture, pen tests, anything that gives you a clearer image of your current security posture. Try to use a comprehensive security framework, or more for that matter. There's a lot of them out there. Just look at NIST, COBIT for IT governance. I've already mentioned the cyber elephant in the boardroom as a way to start with the 5 pillars of cybersecurity, so you can take a look at that. And last but not least, make sure you implement and or enhance security awareness throughout your staff, throughout your team, because it's the people that are always going to be driving the approach and the culture and the security posture of the company. And with that, I can open the floor to any questions that might have popped up in the meantime.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Big round of applause for you. Tudor, you may stop the screen share so we
Okay. All right.
you again. And yeah, we have quite a few comments actually as well. Helpful
Okay.
hints. Very good. Very good job. Many thanks, dear Judy. You might know each
All
other.
right.
And so, I do have a comment though. I'd like to come back to from Andreas, and he said,
Okay.
need to understand that cybersecurity is a must-have, and it will need a budget, about 10% of the overall IT budget. Is that a bit low, or is he right with that assumption?
So he's definitely right, and yes, Andreas, you are definitely right that the reason for the existence of cybersecurity and a healthy cybersecurity approach is there, and that's why I also put the leadership part as a main point in my presentation, because unless management C-level doesn't see the need for that, it's always going to be a struggle to convince them that this is the cost. And make sure that, and whether it's 10%, whether it's less, whether it's more, making sure that they understand that this is not a cost, but it's an investment, and
Right.
they look at the value that it brings to the company. They look at the risks that budget mitigates, and looking at things that way will help ensure a healthier approach in the long run.
Absolutely. And Peter also says, and I think that's absolutely agreeable. He says, in my opinion, it all starts with an alert list, because many companies just don't know what to do. Okay, they've been hacked or under attack or whatever, and then everybody's like running around. I mean, is that something that you still see, that people?
So more often than not, when we engage with a customer in the early days, just helping them set up any form of intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system, even a simple like web application firewall put in front of their main application or main website or main public facing solution, that starts to give them an insight into the number of attacks that are happening daily. And I remember even something from many years ago when we put such a device in front of a website and told the customer, see, we activated the solution yesterday, and by today, so 24 hours later, it stopped 200 different attacks. And so the customer went, well, why would people out there start attacking us all of a sudden? And we just told them it's not all of a sudden. This was happening 2 days ago as well, or 3 days ago as well. You just didn't know about it.
Exactly.
And it's so just becoming aware of what you should be looking at. And that's why zero trust as an approach, besides trying to figure out ways to ensure that just the right people should have access to the right assets inside the company. One essential aspect of zero trust is the assume breach approach,
Mhm.
where you stop thinking, what should I do to prevent an attack or to prevent getting hacked? And you start thinking, what should I do to figure out if I've already been hacked? What if I've been hacked and I just don't know it yet? What should I do different? What should I look for? What should I start monitoring that I'm not monitoring right now that would tell me that my infrastructure or my database has been compromised? And this kind of an approach is a way more healthy approach in terms of dealing with the potential threats and the potential unknowns. Asking yourself, what is it that I could be doing better or could be doing different to detect something that I'm not detecting right now?
Mhm.
That will tell me more about the state of the security inside my company and my security posture.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the overview and your outlining. And everybody was,
Problem.
I
And
mean,
sorry for the
no
technical
worries. No, we got you
glitches.
back. So
I saw the like proxy, whatever. So it's
that's fine. We made it on
thank you,
time and
internet.
everything's,
Yes.
everything's good. You've had a lot of thanks and kudos in the comment section. So thank you for your time. And I'm inviting everyone, all of you. I guess everything starts with stop think it will not hit me and realize stop thinking it will not hit me and
Um,
realize currency
yeah.
efficiency.
So I
Sacrifice.
mean, there's another quote out there. When you're running from a bear, and I paraphrase it. It's by Jim Butcher. When you're running from a bear, you don't have to be the fastest. You just have to be faster than the guy next to you.
Okay,
Uh,
that's a good
so,
one.
so the thing is, more often than not, just doing the bare minimum instead of not doing anything will help you a lot more because it will just make it a little bit harder for the bad guys to attack you, and
Okay,
they'll just move on to the next target. So just
perfect.
getting things started should be more than enough. Doing the first step is always the hardest.
Yes, Peter, if you are alone, well, I mean, you probably in the forest
Yeah.
might be alone, but not in the company as a company. So thank you so much. Very interesting. And thanks for your time again. And we'll meet up in the lobby. You're cordially
All right.
invited as well. We do a little raffle and have some champagne, because it's a wrap for today. And hopefully see you all soon. And thank you, Tudor, for your time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.